Hello there, welcome back to another show. Today I'm going to talk about Nigel Kneale's Year of the Sex Olympics. Now this one was made by the BBC in 1968, middle of flower power, everything was changing, so you had a kind of BBC that was rigid in one sense, but they were also doing things like this. They were also doing Monty Python's Flying Circus. So it was a weird time where they were doing controversial stuff and really boring stuff at the same time. So it was a very confused time. And that's probably how this get through. I mean, it's such a strange one that you're thinking, how did they manage to get this through the censors? And I'm sure quite a lot of the people weren't quite sure what the hell some people were making. Because it's quite an outlandish story, and it's a very brave thing to do, especially if you're paid by, the license fee that BBC was and still is, at least for now. So it's a look at totalitarian future, which is always in style. There's always a fear, I think, of government becoming totalitarian. So every generation has its story of what it is. It's 1984, Brave New World. Like, how can things go wrong in our society? How can we take something that's in our midst and how it can be overblown to dominate and, cause havoc? I mean, now with social media, there's obviously a great satire on social media needing to be made, but how it's drives everyone insane. But this one is all about apathy. How we create apathy through indulging our worst instincts. Now, this year the Sex Olympics takes place in a future where, in the past, there's been a lot of tension, there's been a lot of wars, and they've decided that human beings don't need tension. Human beings are not made for that. What they really need is to be apathetic and just to watch TV and experience everything through TV. There's too many people in the world that try to kill the population. So what they've done is they've actually brought pornography into the mainstream. And they have basically pornography on TV as one of the different things we watch. And there's also like very childish programming all over the place. But the big hit is the sex games and the upcoming Sex Olympics, which has basically people screwing, and these are idealised figures who are all very easy on the eye, and they treat sex like it's a sport, and there's good penetration, good this, good that, and the people watch it and they become more apathetic, and they don't really want to indulge in sex themselves because it's been provided by the state. And you actually start the story off with two characters in a booth, and they're the producers of this show, the sex show, basically, and they're the ones who are bringing the people in, and basically the people they bring in are the same people again and again, because people like those people. So kind of like how TV shows throughout the last 40, 50 years have always had the same faces that you like them, so they keep getting hired because people like them and people are on board with them. Even in this sort of sex trade thing, people have people that like to watch have sex. They have their favourites. And the people that come in as the new ones usually don't last because they don't have the technique that people want to watch. So I mean, that's like the ultimate satire of the figures we watch on TV. The kind of bland figures, you don't really get a sense of their personality. This is the ultimate take on that. And you see society has been split up into the high level intelligences and basically the working classes. And most people are working classes. Most people view as low intelligence. And you have the elite, what we'd call the London elite, the media elite, the ones who have high IQs for the society, as you'll find, they're not that high IQ, because this is a society that's dumbed itself down really badly, because they have a generation of people who've gone through this and watched this, and a lot of the shows are showed people are just images thrown at the screen, and they're not, there's no depth to them. You're basically coddling people and getting them used to very childish things, very childish sentiments, very childish ways of talking. People can't really face the subconscious at all. We've become so mollycoddled in this world that it's a world that has no inspiration. It's just decayed. And one of the themes of it is how human beings actually can bring down their own societies by being scared of questions that may need answered. Maybe you look at someone who wants to stay fit, they'll exercise. Well, your brain needs exercise too. If you're a society that's actually made your intelligence fat and lazy, this is what you get. People don't know how to express themselves at all. They get very disturbed by the most basic of ideas. Not that it's anything about what we do nowadays, but it's a very timely story. So it's the whole idea basically is that the society has basically gone from a high society to a low society out of fear, and people don't know how to communicate. They have very tenuous relationships with other people. The only people allowed to breed now are the people who are the high intelligences. The low intelligences are just trying to make sure they don't breed. And children are now tested for their intelligence level. And a lot of them, even from the higher, because the breeding the higher levels, because their input is so basic, a lot of them don't get inspired to actually stay at a higher level. They actually become just low level because they don't want to read, they don't want to do anything, they just want everything fed to them, which is what happens to the daughter of our main character. She just gets so used to being fed the information and not having no demands made on her. She's failing completely, and it looks bad for the parents, even though it's like, well, that's a society. I mean, basically, some of the older people can remember the older world where it was much tougher, but everyone's a bit scared to talk about it too much because it makes them uncomfortable. So anything that makes them uncomfortable makes them unsure themselves. So that's the world we're actually in, a world where you can show anything you want on the screen as long as it doesn't disturb. So sex is fine, but don't have any ideas. So it just shows what a society is really made of is they'd much rather have anything on the screen rather than ideas. They don't want to disturb their fragile setup, which can go for any society around the world, because every society has their weak points that actually to the outside world always feels a bit absurd. It's like, why are you so worried about that? This is the ultimate version of that. So into this situation comes a artist who is in the higher levels, but he's become much more disturbed by it. He doesn't even know how to talk about himself. He just does all these drawings that are actually much more disturbing and much more to the presenters and the work people of this sort of higher class. It's very disturbing because it actually brings up feelings of the subconscious and feelings they don't know how to deal with. And he goes in a run and starts to break into the TV department and actually have these images flashing up to the general society, which this is seen as the ultimate pariah. So he ends up getting killed on screen, and it's like, oh, thank God he's dead. Rather than saying, what disturbs about this image? It's like, just kill the messenger. We don't want to deal with this. But it gets to the lead character who is trying to work out his feelings, because he knows something's wrong, but he doesn't have the education to process it, to actually use whatever intelligence he has to actually get to the root of the problem. He's been undereducated. So you're following him trying to work out what's so disturbing about it. So he comes up with this idea of, instead of watching all this trash, why not just watch people in the real world trying to survive? So they put him on an island with his ex-girlfriend and their daughter. And the idea was that people are going to watch them do 24 hours a day, go through their lives and just trying to survive in an inhospitable culture, try to deal with that, and it becomes this story of them trying to create a new way of seeing things. But of course, that goes all wrong, because one thing this society has is an obsession with ratings, and the ratings, the second guy in the booth from the sex shows is more obsessed with getting ahead. So he puts a psychopath on the island with them to draw in ratings, and obviously all hell breaks loose. And it becomes a case of instead of actually trying to look at the problem, that society would actually create, instead of just having sex, it would create violence. So you get an expression of the pain of society, but they're not going to actually look at it intelligently. And that's the problem with society. It's so dumbed down, it's so intellectually barren, they cannot actually look at themselves with any objectivity. Sort of like we do now, in so many ways. Like, we can't even have a conversation nowadays without everybody getting offended, the government trying to not have a conversation because they look guilty as hell, and everyone breaks into their tribes, and we don't actually have a conversation, we actually have yelling at each other, and it's like, you actually need to have a conversation what's triggering some of these issues, these complicated issues. And this is the ultimate expression of that, going to the extremism of we've just degraded ourselves so much in this future society. It's like a warning thing of, don't go this far. You know, it's very timely for today, but it's also very much a look at how human beings actually interact, and how your actual people will fight to actually not think. A section of society would does not want to think, or they're going to a tribe so they don't have to think. They do not want to think things through, they want the emotion. That's it. It's a very cynical view, but it's kind of true. Look at human beings and history. We want to be told, say we're thinking. Like, what this like a satire this show is like, everyone seems to say, okay, we're a good part of society, we're the smart ones, when they're really dummies. And it's like they don't want to actually think, they're scared of thinking, they're scared of having thought, but they want to be seen to be intelligent. And it's like, I'm pretty sure that was happening in the 60s too, I'm pretty sure it was happening in the 50s, I'm pretty sure Nigel Kneale, who wrote it, has seen it many times from many people, and was pretty sick of it. He just took it to the most extreme level of stupidity. But it is a bit how human beings will avoid things, and how that actually has an effect on society, and how that has an effect on making us, if we're so fearful of the things we don't want to face, how that can have a detrimental effect if we use our organisational setup to actually make sure those things do not come up, and how you'll find all these other things like reality TV or pornography or anything else to take your mind off thinking about your reality. Because look at nowadays, with reality TV and with pornography on the internet, and people can say what they think about everyone's in these porn stars technique. It's completely now, this show. And it's pretty brutal, because it does show how we actually have debased the idea of thinking and being clear and using facts and using intelligence to actually go through difficult, thorny subjects. We'd rather just take sides and find melodrama to ignore it. So we have films that are actually very much all about nothing, really. And we have internet content on YouTube, which is all but 95% utter trash and garbage, and people are encouraged to think their own little bubble is important, just like we do with a lot of film videos. But it's that thing is no one's going to be thinking. It's like society has become terrified of thinking. You look at any religious society, they're terrified of thinking too closely, and they'll make it a law against blasphemy, so you don't have to think, you don't have to say, hey, this is a bit off. You know, it's like, it's a human condition. So well, Nigel Kneale takes the idea of the satire, is really getting at the idea of how human beings operate and how we protect ourselves from having to actually put thought into things. How we actually just degrade our own intelligence to actually stop thinking about things that actually are disturbing to us, and how what should be a simple thing, if we uneducate ourselves, can actually be something mysterious and difficult to deal with, and how if you're that dumbed down, you're not paying attention to the details that are actually dangerous to you. You've lost your fight or flight response. You've lost your survival instinct, essentially. Because the one person with a survival instinct, played by Brian Cox, he's the second command, and he's the one who manipulates everything. He's the one who's much more and it's still linked to his darker animal side, and everyone else isn't, and he destroys them all. And that's what kind of takes over. They become the leader of the pack and keeps the thing operating, because they're still not that intelligent. They're just operating instinct. So how this kind of fear can lead to sort of leadership techniques that you're not going to enjoy. Because by the end of this, there's going to be a lot more games like this where people go to islands and are hunted by psychopaths, and it becomes this melodramatic thing that still doesn't look at the problems, it just looks at, oh, people have gone from the apathy of this to they want a bit of excitement in their soul, so they watch this. But it's the same level of trap. They're going from one trap to another trap. They're not moving on. They're just moving from one trap to the other. So, Year of the Six Olympics is terrific. I highly recommend you watching. It's available on DVD from BFI. Very hard to find because I think a lot of stuff is wiped. So the quality of this is not great, but the content is. I mean, there are problems in the production. I mean, the lead actor, he's not that good. He overacts, and sometimes you feel like you're watching someone in a silent film. But the ideas are so good that it gets through it. Some of the production design's a bit 60s sci-fi as well. But it's so intelligently written that those flaws don't matter, ultimately. So I hope I've interested you in watching Year of the Six Olympics. It's terrific. It's really wonderful. It's definitely worth your time. So that's me for now. I'll see you later.